We estimate that there are 2,500 to 3,000 open positions in Greene County, yet unemployment has less than 900 people on it. We have a very high workforce participation rate. Our rate is above the national and state averages. So those eligible to be in the workforce are mostly in the workforce. There are folks that are out of the workforce that could be working that have specific challenges, just like was mentioned. Transportation, childcare being two of the bigger impediments, but so all of these things are very true for us as well. We have an aging population. We have a stagnant and somewhat shrinking population overall. We have an issue with affordable housing, so attracting new people to our communities is difficult. And so it's all kind of coming together in a perfect storm that's leaving us in a situation where it really comes down to a lack of available bodies. So a lot of what you saw in that video is very true of what's happening right now. And what we need to do is a number of things that were mentioned in there. So it's, we have to address some of the issues that are impediments to folks who could possibly work. And we have to also come up with a strategy to attract folks to want to come and live and work here and give them the means to do so.
In Columbia County, we have a very similar profile. Specifically, we lost population in the last 10-year census. And it was very interesting that we lost 35% of the 0 to 18-year-olds, but we gained 30% of the 65-year-old plus. There was about a 0.2 variant between the people between 18 and 65. So as Jeff points out, similar to Greene County, we have seen a tremendous pressure on workforce and opportunities. Columbia County is also over 80% in workforce participation. And we are, as of the end of September, we are at 4% unemployment, tied with Saratoga County for the lowest unemployment in the state. The statewide average is 7.1%. So as we see the pressure that is on all of you in business and people who are looking for employees, it's really, when you listen to the presentation on video, it's not something new, but it has been exacerbated and the stress has been felt as a result of the disruption from the pandemic. And so when you take the added pressures that employers have had to reconfigure their business to adapt to the business changes resulting from the pandemic, and you look at the pressures that employees have faced, whether, as Jeff points out, childcare or other related issues, becoming sick themselves or taking care of family members, it really has put us in a position that I think we all understand what the issues are, and all of the statistics and dynamics prove what we already know. So I think we really need to start looking at what are some of those solutions. And when you look at Columbia County, we, in the last census, are shown to have about 2,000 private sector businesses, and 70% of those businesses have less than 10 employees. So when you start to think about it, the pressure on small businesses to adapt and to address all of these issues and all of the other issues you're facing makes it very difficult, because you don't have some of the infrastructure or departments that a large corporation would have to address these things.
All right, so just quick, I wanted to talk some local numbers. Jeff had talked about labor participation rate. So our labor participation rate across both counties, so Columbia and Greene counties combined, is at 82%. So 82% of the people that are non-institutionalized and eligible to work in the two counties are employed already in the two counties. And the national average right now is 60%. So in Columbia and Greene counties, we're about 20% above the national average in labor participation. So the myth that a lot of people are just kind of sitting on the sidelines, or that there was this huge impact from the additional unemployment benefit that had been paid. I'd really like to kind of put that to rest. The people in Columbia and Greene counties are working, and we're about a month out from the expiration of those extra unemployment benefits. And I think all of us can say that we haven't really seen that big rush that everyone maybe anticipated as those benefits ended. And also the unemployment rate in Columbia and Greene counties, those numbers, 4%, 5%, only equate to about 2,000 people total across both counties that are unemployed, that are eligible to work and receiving unemployment benefits. Whereas there's about 6,000 total vacant unique job postings across the two counties. So across Indeed and job banks and monster.com, there's just about 6,000 openings. And that doesn't count all of the people, the small businesses that Mike was talking about, and that I'm sure Jeff works with, that just kind of put a sign out on the yard in front of their business. Those people are not counted. So there's probably another 1,000 or 2,000 of those positions that are vacant that aren't listed on any of these internet job boards. So even if every single person on unemployment re-entered the workforce and we had full labor participation, we're still looking at 2,000 or 2,500 job postings that would not be filled. So I think it's important as we're looking forward at this situation, and as you guys and your leadership teams are making plans on how to address these things, you really have to take into account and bear in mind that there are not enough people to fill those positions in the two counties right now in the labor force. So which brings us maybe to my next question. Who may be the best partners, right? So we work with a lot of partners, right? So for a business, a small business, or an employer who wants to do something, who wants to engage in training, who wants to work with the available services around them, what partners may be available in Greene and Columbia counties that would be able to help a business if they were to reach out? And I guess we'll start with Mike this time.
Thank you. Well, first of all, our education system. We have 6 school districts in each of the counties. Interestingly enough, in Columbia County, if you look at all 6 school districts and you look at the population in the 12th grade, there are only 500 students. So that puts some additional focus on the pressure. But we have Quest Star 3, we have the school districts, and we're very, very fortunate to have Columbia-Greene Community College as a partner. In addition, we have the workforce office here at the college that Chris Nardone runs. It's Workforce New York,
Workforce New York,
Columbia-Greene. Yeah. And we also have a workforce development board, which is comprised of business owners and leaders throughout the 2 counties focusing on these issues. And Katie Drake coordinates that effort. We also are fortunate to have numerous partnerships, whether it's Greene County Economic Development or the Greene County Chamber, or Columbia Economic Development or the Columbia County Chamber, as well as business associations throughout both counties in our towns, cities, and our villages. And so I think when you start to begin to put together these partnerships, which are critical to not, so that we're not duplicating efforts, but we're collaborating, coordinating, communicating, and in some cases consolidating the work that we're doing. And you add some of our social service agencies, and you look at county social service departments, and you look at not-for-profits, both in the arts, cultural, tourism, and educational arenas. We're all at the table. And I think one of the things I think that's happened over the last year or two is that those partnerships are working. They're in place. I'm sure there are resources that haven't yet been added to the 5 or 6 page list that I know we have. And if you're out there and want to participate, please be sure that you follow up either in the chat or independently after the presentation.
Yeah, and I think Mike touched on pretty much all of the various resources that are out there. The only thing that I would add is just that within your own communities, there are groups that are getting together and talking individually about various things like, job sharing and things like that. So while job sharing could be difficult in some industries, especially seasonal industries, are talking about, well, if I'm a summer resort, can I cooperate maybe with one of the ski resorts and have my staff work for them and then come back to me, and possibly carrying things on like benefits and things like that. So those are other opportunities amongst yourselves in your own industries that you might be able to get together and have a conversation about, when my workforce is idle, could it work in another industry, or vice versa. If you're not in an industry that's seasonal, maybe there are slower times for your business that might be benefit a business that's busier at another time. So we've looked at even things like workforce sharing, because as Chris was saying in some of these numbers, the critical part of the number that seems to blow everybody's mind when I tell them about it is there are more people working in Greene County now, and I believe that's the same in Columbia County, than were working pre-pandemic or at any time, at least during my tenure at the Chamber of Commerce, which is now over 9 years. So we have people are working. There are more jobs, and to some degree, we're all a victim of our own success. So many of you who are on this call who are business people, congratulations, you're doing an amazing job. The economies of Columbia and Greene County are absolutely just booming right now. So part of the problem is that economic growth and that success is creating a strain where it requires more workforce, and there are more jobs. In Greene County, there are actually 17% more businesses open today than there were at the start of the pandemic. That requires a lot more workforce. Not all of them are needing workforce. Some of them are mom and pops, but that also creates a bigger stress, more demand for more employees when there's a time when we have a shortage. And what I think Chris touched on it, and Mike has touched on it as well, and it was somewhat touched on in the video. Our problem is not unique. This is an upstate New York problem, but it is also a national problem. Any community that's rural or suburban rural like ours is in this similar situation. You can pick a county like ours in Nebraska, Oklahoma, I don't care where you go. They're experiencing the same problem. This isn't everybody's just wanting to leave New York problem. It's all rural and suburban rural counties or locations are feeling the stress of migration towards the suburbs and urban environments. So we have to figure out in some of our things that we do, how do we make do with less in terms of workforce, although the workforce is out there working. How do we get those folks, that 18% that's not participating, some of which will never participate? Keep in mind, that includes people who may have had a government job where they worked for 30 years, got to 55 and said, I'm done. They'll never come back in the workforce, but they are considered part of workforce participation numbers. So maybe there's 12% left out there. How do we help them to overcome the challenges? How do we help them, or how can you help them as an employer to overcome the challenge to become someone you can employ? So I probably answered too many questions with that question, but.
Well, and one of the things that Jeff and Chris and I spoke about earlier was the fact about specific training for your own business. And to the extent that we have 70% of our businesses with under 10 employees, that may not be as practical unless there's opportunities to collaborate with competitors or people who are in the same field. And I think that's where Questar and the college can really play an important role in providing a curriculum or a program that would help you there. I also think that in addition, we need to look at retention and attraction programs. We had one of the largest influx of people during the pandemic from those urban areas, and we need to start looking at the reverse trend of the exodus that we've seen in the past. In Columbia County, the U.S. Post Office said it was, I believe, the largest forwarding address in the country during the pandemic, primarily people from New York City and Boston. having the mail redirected to their second home in these counties. And Greene County has a second home community, probably larger even than Columbia counties. How, once those people get here and start spending 3, 4, 5 days a week here instead of 1 or 2, how do we get them into the workforce, either part-time or full-time? And we also have to figure out how we count those who have expired or have gone beyond the unemployment insurance benefit count. How, when they're out of the system, how do we count them, and how do we stay in touch with them? When you're on unemployment, you check in, but when your benefits expire, how do we connect and reconnect with you? And finally, we have the gig economy. The one thing we did learn during the pandemic is a lot of workers have shifted their goals, and many people are looking at 1, 2, or 3 jobs because they want it that way. Others are looking at 1, 2, or 3 jobs because they need to earn a living to support their family. So there's tremendous balance, and when you have so many industries with so many small businesses in it, we need to find that common thread that provides support for all of you.
And I did want to touch on one thing with the unemployment numbers that Chris talked about. In Greene County, at our best, when we had our lowest ever unemployment figure back, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, there were still 600 or 700 people on unemployment. That's about as low as we can get. There's a natural, I don't know, you want to call it a churn in the market, where there's people leaving a job and then finding a job. So right now, available workforce who's on unemployment, like the real number out of that number, if it's 1,000 in Greene County, I think last month it was 900. That's only 200 to 300 people. So it's that market for a lot of people to go and find employees there is very small. It's not, it's statistically impossible, and just impossible in general because of flow, to get to 0 people on unemployment. It's just impossible. But the biggest, most important takeaway from that is that it's 200 to 300 active people at any time that might be over and above the lowest we can possibly get.
I kind of, to piggyback on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about training and reaching out to non-traditional demographics and markets of people that might be able to fill some of these positions. So in the video, they talked about training and how a business or an employer is going to have to take on some of the training responsibility back onto themselves. And I know that after 2008 and the years after, there were a lot of skilled people in the workforce, and a lot of businesses kind of dialed back their training departments or increased the skills necessary on their job descriptions, because there were just a lot of really highly skilled people in the market, and you didn't necessarily have to have a really robust training department at your business. So there was a transition to a lot of online training providers and online training systems. And now may be a time really to rethink those things and reinvest in the training. And then you'll be able to work with disability providers or reentry organizations or mental health providers with people that may have some barrier or some disability that makes it difficult for them to get some of the jobs that have these really detailed job descriptions, and at businesses that don't have a robust enough training department to work with those people. But at this point, it's really, there are a lot of people that have these barriers that really want to work, that can do jobs that you need done. And a lot of organizations and service providers that will support them through the process of getting a job, and then through the training, so that you'll be able to fill some of these positions, even though the labor market itself might be really slim right now. So part of what I think people should be thinking about is how can we train people that we normally would not have looked at for these positions. And I think part of that, to go back to partners, would be to reach out to your local disability providers that may have a supported employment program, or a mental health association that has a supported employment program, or reach out to the local reentry office, and really get people in that traditionally you may not have looked at for these positions. And part of the training, like Mike had said, part of your training regimen may be to reach out to Questar or the college, who has a pretty substantial non-credit or certification professional development program that will work with your business to develop programs specifically for your training needs. So if you reach out to the college and their non-credit office, they'll work with you to provide those courses to people, whether it's, I know CPR first aid is one that comes up a lot, or leadership, or even a micro-credential in something like customer service, or there's just a lot of options for working with the college and Questar both to develop a real personalized training program for your business or your sector. If there's a group of businesses that have, you know, a small number of employees or not a lot of resources, to come together as a sector segment and approach the college or Questar to support what training needs there. But at the same time, it may be really worthwhile for you to look at what you're able to provide as far as training goes, so that you can get a hold of people that traditionally or historically you might not have offered these positions to. Because I think the video made a really good point, when the job description should really just say, can you communicate and will you come to work? That may be the best way to approach it, and not exclude people that you may have historically been able to overlook.
And also some of the curriculum courses at the college and the programs, particularly in the construction area and auto servicing, nursing, healthcare, you know, whether or not, you know, someone takes multiple courses in a degree track or not, it's still a tremendous opportunity, and the college is just a phenomenal resource to both counties, and provides a lot of support and opportunity for so many people.
And Questar also has an adult education program, and they are willing to work in a number of fields, in a number of industries, with training for adult workforce. So there are resources out there for training if that is an issue for you, if you need trained workforce. The other thing that was touched on in the video, and I don't think we've talked enough about, is retention of your present staff. A lot of employers need to get creative about retention. We're finding that it's not all about the hourly wage for people, and that in fact some of it is just workforce environment, or the workplace, just the workplace in general, or just how the job is for them. So you may want to try to have a conversation amongst your management staff, or think about it yourself, about how you can make your workplace a very attractive workplace for your staff or for potential employees. Maybe there are silly benefits, like you buy them a Sam's Club card and they really like having a free Sam's Club membership. They're looking for added benefits for being a member of your staff, and that there's a looking for appreciation right now because in several of your industries, they're under a tremendous amount of stress. They're working harder. Customers seem to be more, if you're in a customer driven business, customers seem to be more hostile on a daily basis. So they're dealing in a more hostile environment. So anything you can do to make the job seem more palatable to your staff will help with retention. And right now, because it is so difficult to find people, retaining your staff becomes even more critical.
And Chris had mentioned the opportunity to work with organizations that support the disabled or people with mental health. But I think it's also important that we look at those who are not in the workforce because they haven't had the exposure or opportunity to the workforce. And I think that there have been a number of programs throughout the county and in Hudson that are underway and being developed to address that. And when you look at the population of people who haven't had the opportunities in their lifetime at this point, many young people in their late teens and early 20s, to be able to get into a program that provides some structure, discipline, and training is another great source of potential future workers. And I think it's something that, in our view, economic development is all about the quality of life and a decent job. And I think the opportunity to help those who haven't had those opportunities is critical to our success.
Yeah, and I think in our work, workforce development, it's really partnerships. You cannot say enough about partnerships. And I think that, again, finding those organizations that are serving youth in your area, or finding those organizations that are working with a population that just maybe needs some experience. Our office partners with organizations like Access VR, which serves people with developmental disabilities, and Job Corps, and a lot of these organizations that may need internship opportunities or placement opportunities for young people. This is a great way for your business to engage with people who are young, who may not have that opportunity or don't know what you do. I think also of Career Jam that happened over the summer was another opportunity for your business or your sector to engage with young people, just so that you can kind of make it attractive and have them have an understanding of what your work does. So when they're talking to seniors or juniors in high school, they have some idea of what jobs are available and what businesses are available, so they don't kind of go right to the well-known businesses.
And both counties' economic development offices and chamber, along in partnership with Workforce New York and the college, initiated a junior leadership program, which now is known as Career Connects.
Yep.
And the college and the partners are working very, very hard to strengthen that program and relaunch it in the early part of next year. And I think that as you look at those types of initiatives to engage our young people earlier in the process, so that they perhaps stay in the counties or come back after they've gone to school or explored the big cities, internships, apprenticeships, mentorships. Chris runs a job fair several times a year, more specific job fairs more regularly, working together with tourism training and the opportunity to create engagement with each other, recognizing that if you have less than 10 employees, you're working 24/7 already to run your business.
Yeah, I'd like to just touch really quickly on wages and retention, where the clock's ticking on us. But I think as throughout the past year, we've all noticed that wages have started to really come up across all of the sectors in both counties. And I'm sure it has worked to get some new employees on, as well as the sign-on bonuses that you kind of see all over the place. I don't know that those are going to be the best way to spend your resources over the course of the next year or so, while we kind of wait and see as the volatility in the market settles. It doesn't seem like most of those wage increases and sign-on bonus, at least anecdotally in my discussion with businesses, have led to a lot of new employees. So it may be worthwhile for you, as HR professionals, when you talk with your leadership team, to suggest, like Jeff had said, retention, right? Focus those funds on keeping the people that you have. There's a ton of competition out there amongst businesses across all sectors. And as wages go up, there'll be a lot of kind of stealing back and forth, I don't want to say stealing, but going back and forth for employees, right? There's a limited pool. It's really a zero-sum game. And if you bring someone on, it would be very easy for them to go somewhere else. So it may be wiser to spend some of those resources on, like Jeff had said, perks, retention bonuses. And I think it's also really important to talk about company culture, and whether or not you have a welcoming and inviting company culture that encourages people to stay and gives them a sense that they're doing good and that they're engaged in the product they're producing or the service they're providing. And it's really, especially over the course of the next couple of years, as that volatility settles, it's going to be more and more important for you to hold on to the people that you have, and keep those employees that you have happy. And I think we all can attest to the fact that word of mouth really makes a difference when you have such small communities and such close-knit areas. If you provide a really great company culture and you really care for the people that work for you, they will talk to their friends and they'll talk to the people in their circles, and you will be more likely to not only retain, but I think also attract and recruit some people. So that is not to say that that you should lower wages, but I think also in the back of your mind, you should really be thinking about, how am I going to hold on to the people I have as the market becomes more and more and more competitive over the course of the next year or so. So
I just wanted to add one last thing. And this is my doom and gloom part of it. This will get worse. More people are retiring. Not many are coming into the workforce. If you look out a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, I think our workforces will continue to shrink a little bit unless we can do a really good job of attraction to our communities of people from outside our market. And that's a whole different conversation for a whole nother time. There's a lot of barriers to attracting people to our communities to come and work and live, but we really, we need to start thinking creatively about how we can do this in the present marketplace, in the present environment. And I don't know that necessarily we can improve it very much. And I know that doesn't sound very optimistic, but that's the reality on the ground today. And I do want to say that to piggyback on the workforce environment, on the workplace, on your workplace culture, people had time during the pandemic that we all got shut down. Everybody went home. Everybody had time to ponder what makes them happy and where they wanted to be in life. And as you can see in certain markets, like all of a sudden, where'd all the chefs and cooks go? Well, I think a lot of them left the industry. They realized it's a really tough job for not a great amount of reward. And they took the time to learn something new or start a new profession. So workplace culture, workplace environment has become something that has become very valuable when I talk to people either looking for jobs or in the marketplace. And when I hear of people who are switching jobs, that's one of the things that are being mentioned quite a bit.
And I think from the economic development standpoint and Columbia Economic Development's mission and 4 pillars of its strategic plan are supporting entrepreneurship. And we have a $3 million small business loan fund for any of you out there who are interested, please contact us. Focusing on technical assistance to businesses who are in that arena as well. We focus on infrastructure and we focus on quality of life and workforce and education. But to kind of keep it at to look at the bigger picture while we're focused in on this issue, we do need to look at housing, transportation, childcare, broadband, healthcare, and education, because that's what's going to keep people here and that's what's going to attract new people to want to live here.
Yeah. And I think that is a great closing sentiment, right? There's a lot of work for us to do. Public-private sector partnerships are really going to be important as we try to remove as many barriers as we possibly can that are keeping people that are available to go to work out of work. And Mike had pointed out broadband, childcare, transportation, and a lot of other barriers are really standing in the way of a not insubstantial portion of the population getting to work. And the more that we can do as a community and public and private enterprise to remove those barriers and to bring as many people into the workforce as we can and to entice as many people to move into the area as we can, the better off we'll all be. And I'd like to thank Jeff and Mike for joining us today. And if you have any questions or there's any resources that we can provide, please reach out to Danielle Paleschi. If she hasn't yet, I'll have her put her email in the chat. And feel free to reach out to any of us if there's anything that we can do. If there's no questions from the chat, then I think that is going to be just about our time. So thank you all for coming. And hopefully the information was valuable and we can work together to get through this workforce challenge as best we can.
Thank you, Chris, for putting this together and for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.